My salutations to all of you. Welcome back to the Gita Odyssey live sessions. In the past 5 sessions, we covered an important topic, foundations required for a meaningful study. Mainly, we focused on what is Bhagavad Gita, why should I study the Bhagavad Gita in the digital age, and how should I study the Bhagavad Gita. We also saw a brief history of the Bhagavad Gita from the time of Mahabharata to 2024, where exactly it stands. Additionally, we have discussed a few topics. What are all the difficulties when I sincerely study the Bhagavad Gita? And also some of the myths about the Bhagavad Gita. So these are some of the foundations required for a meaningful study of the entire Bhagavad Gita. Before we get into Gita Dhyanam, let's look at a quote. So the Gita Dhyanam is a devotional prelude to the symphony of the spiritual wisdom that echoes through the Bhagavad Gita. So with that quote, let's get into the Gita Dhyanam. So before we go to the Bhagavad Gita Dhyanam, let's try to understand what exactly is Dhyana Shlokam. Because Dhyana Shlokam is not specific to Bhagavad Gita. The idea of the Dhyana Shloka is pretty much part and parcel of Sanatana Dharma, the Hindu culture or the Sanatana Dharma, for millennia. So the idea of the Dhyana Shloka is to put right intention and focus for a spiritual practice. Whatever is that spiritual practice. Let's say I'm going to do a prayer. I can invoke a Dhyana Shloka for setting the mood for that prayer, for setting direction for that prayer, making sure that I'm clear on the purpose of the prayer, for making sure that I have focus on the prayer. So this Dhyana Shlokas are usually chanted or contemplated before any spiritual practice. It's usually used as an invocation before any spiritual practice. The idea is to tune the seeker's mind to the divine. So that is the purpose of the Dhyana Shloka. So let's see what is the meaning of the Dhyana Shloka. The Dhyana Shloka came from the root thi. The beauty of the Sanskrit is any word you take, it can be derived from a root using some suffixes and some pratyayas. So here, when you look at the word Dhyanam, the root is dhi. The meaning of the word, the root dhi is perceiving or understanding or contemplating. That is the meaning. And when that root is connected with a suffix called ya, so ya means it's a specific state or an action tied to the root. Here in this particular case, dhi. So a state connected with the root. So what exactly it is? So it means a deep focused contemplation or attention or meditation. So that is the word dhyana means here. So it came from the root thi. Combining dhi with the pratyaya ya, you get the word dhyaya, and it changes to a noun dhyanam. This is how the Sanskrit works. It means deep focused contemplation or attention on a particular object. Whatever chosen object it is, this is the meaning. So that is the meaning of the word dhyana. So the second word in the Dhyana Shlokam is shloka. The word shloka came from the root shru. Shru means to hear. So the word shloka means what is heard or what should be heard. So beautiful meaning, right? So shloka means what is heard or what should be heard. So dhyanam means deep focus or attention or contemplation. On what? On what is heard or what should be heard. So Dhyana Shlokam means a set of shlokas or a set of compositions on which you need to have a deep focused attention. When you have a deep focused attention or contemplation on these compositions known as shloka, it is going to elevate you, It is going to set the mood for you, and it is going to connect you with the divine, or it is going to help you to pursue that spiritual practice properly. So this is the idea of Dhyana Shloka. So there are some characteristics of Dhyana Shloka. So usually when you talk about the shloka as what is to be heard, it is composed properly, right? So use the language, the capacity of the language, to make sure that there is appropriate rhythm. There is certain certain meter, meaning it adhere to. For example, in Bhagavad Gita, you have the Anushtup meter. So here you see tam tatha kripaya vishtam ashrupurna kulekshanam vishidantam. You can see there are 4 lines in this Anushtup, and each line has 9 syllables. So that is not an easy to compose. You have to make sure that you are picking and choosing the words in such a way that it adhere to this metric pattern. So there is a meter which is known as chandas, and there are number of defined lines and the syllable counts in a typical shloka. And Anushtup is one of the most popular shloka. The meter, as I said, there are 8 syllables each, and there will be 4 lines. And sometimes these shlokas can be rhymed. You can see proper rhymes. So the second letter always repeats, called as it can be rhymed or unrhymed, but you will see some consistency. If it is rhymed, you will see the shlokas properly rhymed throughout. Otherwise, it won't be there. And then what happens? Like the echo of this consonant and the vowel sounds will be properly selected for rhythmic beauty. And you can see these Dhyana Shlokas paints beautiful imageries. So the imagery of a Krishna, like with one hand he is showing the Jnana Mudra, the other hand he is showing the signs of action. There are beautiful imageries painted through the Dhyana Shloka, which is going to have a tremendous impact if you contemplate it properly. So once again, Dhyana Shloka means the deep attention or contemplation paid to certain shlokas known as composition, which meaning you need to hear, or which are supposed to be heard by you. Why you need to hear a shloka? Because it is going to elevate you to a different level and connect you to the next level. So this is the characteristics of the Dhyana Shloka. Now the next question is, when we talk about the shloka, what is the origins of this shloka? The legend says that the first shloka was composed by Maharshi Valmiki. It came from the sorrow of this great sage Valmiki. That is the origins of the first shloka. I don't have to talk about that. All of you might have heard this. The famous story of how the Ramayanas, like Maharshi Valmiki, as you know, he was a tribal person who used to kill everybody. And under the guidance of Sapta Rishis, he turned into a spiritual practitioner. And while he was walking through the banks of river Narmada, he saw a hunter killed a bird. Actually, there were 2 birds, and this hunter killed this bird. And there's a lot of sorrows came out of this sage's mind, and suddenly a shloka burst out of him. Manishada pradishtam togama shashwati sama yat krauncha mituna deham avati kama mohita. This is the first shloka. And that is why Valmiki is known as Adi Kavi, the first poet. Till then, there was no shlokas or poetry. This is the first time it is believed that the shlokas came out. And Valmiki himself didn't know that he was composing a shloka. And after composing it, these verses came out of his mouth, he himself got surprised. And later he realized that he got the skill to compose the great story of Bhagavan Rama. He composed the entire story of Bhagavan Rama, who is an embodiment of Dharma, in 24,000 such shlokas. This is the origins of shloka. It's a beautiful history. And then, what is the purpose of this Dhyana Shlokas or meditative verses? See, we can say that Dhyana Shloka, it is the deep attention or contemplation on certain verses. That is why it is meditative verses. The idea is to connect the seeker to the profound spiritual sentiment of that particular practice. Historical root, it is integrated to Indian spiritual tradition. If you take any work, whether it is a stotram or anything, you can see that the Dhyana Shlokas are recited. So, meaning, if you take Rudram, you start with Shuddha Spadika Sankasham, beautiful Dhyana Shlokas. And if you take Vishnu Sahasranamam, Chiro Dhanna Pradeshi, so the Shlokas we heard earlier, it is part of that Vishnu Sahasranama Dhyana Shloka. Shantakaram Bhujaka Shayanam Patmanabham Suresham Vishwadharam Gagana Sadrishyam Mekavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmi Kantam Kamalanayanam Yogi Dhyana Gamyam Vande Vishnum Bhavayagaram Sarvalokaikanatham. Following the structure of a shloka, a beautiful image of Bhagavan Vishnu is painted. He is Shantakara, he is very much calm and quite composed, and he is lying on the bed of Pujaka, snake, Ananta. Padmanabha, meaning he has a lotus in his navel. Suresha, he is the lord of all devas. Vishwadhara, he is the Athishtana of the entire universe. He is the supporter of the entire universe. Gagana Sadrishyam is like Mekhavarnam. His color is of the sky, meaning the Mekha, like the clouds. Lakshmi Kandam Kamalanayanam, he is the husband of Mother Lakshmi. Kamalanayanam, his eyes are of lotus. Yogi Dhyana Gamyam, his image is always there in the heart of yogis who meditate. To that Vishnu, Vandem Vishnum Bhavabhayaharam Sarvalokaikanadham. I salute to that Vishnu who is the Lord of the entire universe, who can remove all the fears from me. So this is the example of the Dhyana Shloka. And pass through generations after generations from spiritual masters for our guidance. So actually I was playing that shloka, Shantakaram, before the start of this class. You can imagine, like if you had paid attention, that chanting itself can take you to a meditative mood. That is the beauty of these Dhyana Shlokas. So what is the significance of this Dhyana Shlokas? There are a lot of points. Let's go one by one. The first and foremost significance is setting the right mood and mindset. See, suppose you are going to undertake a spiritual practice. It could be a meditation, or it could be a chanting, or it could be a study of the Bhagavad Gita, or whatever it is. Whatever is that spiritual practice. It could be Kaikam, Manasam, or Vachikam. Kaikam means you might be starting a ritual which involves physical actions. Vachikam means you might be only chanting, but chanting loud. Or Manasam, sometimes you might be only mentally chanting, or you might be only meditating. Whatever is that practice, when we are transacting in this world outside, and always we get distracted. We might be coming and sitting on the seat of meditation or the spiritual practice with lot of different thoughts. So first you need to ground yourself so that the practice becomes more meaningful. So this practice, which is the Dhyana Shlokas, are chanted or contemplated as a prelude to the spiritual engagement. As I said, whether it is meditation or the study or devotion, so it is karma, bhakti or jnana, whatever it is, you try to do this so that it harmonizes the inner ambience. It calms the mind and it prepares for you to the spiritual practice. That is the first and foremost significance of this Dhyana Shloka. Second one is, these Dhyana Shlokas are very powerful tools for visualization. If you take that Shantakaram, you can close your eyes and paint the image of that Vishnu with all the attributes mentioned. Like Padmanabham, you can imagine like a lotus in his navel. All those things, you can create a mental image. Most of these Dhyana Shlokas can be used for visualization, which is a very powerful practice of meditation. One of the popular set of meditation is visualization meditation. And Dhyana Shlokams are always going to help you to visualize that deity, or whoever is that chosen deity. For example, Ram, Thyaye Tajan. If you contemplate upon that, see, you are painting the image of Rama in your mind. So that is why you can visualize that deity in your mind. So this is a very powerful tool of visualization. Third one is it invoke the divine presence, because we know that our intellect was completely engaged with the world outside, and right now what you want, you're trying to connect with the higher. If you, let's say that if you're studying the Bhagavad Gita, you want to make sure that intellect is connected with that divine wisdom, because it connects you to that divine wisdom. And the chanting or the contemplation of the Dhyana Shloka, it is going to infuse that, it is going to infuse that it by itself, the Dhyanam itself as a spiritual practice into your routine. So that is another beautiful significance of this Dhyana Shloka. Again, the Dhyana Shloka is used for, meaning as a preparation for the spiritual study, but it can fan the flames of the inner devotion as well. When you do the Dhyana Shloka continuously, you can see that it deepens your reverence and commitment to that spiritual practice. So it will automatically enhance devotion. And the next one is it helps you to focus, because we are distracted. Distraction is the biggest challenge in any spiritual practice. Forget about spiritual practice. Any goals, in pursuing any goals, distraction is one of the biggest challenges. So this Dhyana Shloka helps you to focus your mind to the spiritual practice you are about to undertake. For example, if you are studying Bhagavad Gita, if you are doing the Dhyana Shloka, that Dhyana Shlokas is going to help you to bring your attention. So when you study the Bhagavad Gita, and the next one is transcending the ego, right? Because usually what happens, one of the biggest challenge in any spiritual practice is the sense of I-ness, the arrogance about myself. So when you do this Dhyana Shloka continuously, for example, when you pray to Vyasa, when you talk about the divine grace, or when you talk about Ramlala, when you talk about Krishna, all these things are going to see the bigger picture of the life, and it is going to naturally help you to transcend your ego. Like it helps you to reflect on the impermanence of your existence, and it creates an awareness which goes beyond your ego. That is going to help you a lot. That is another beautiful advantage of the Dhyana Shloka. The next one is protection and purification. It is going to work as an armor around you. It safeguards your thoughts. It stays as an affirmation. Whenever you do this Dhyana Shloka, immediately you will be in that safeguarded environment. It help you seamlessly in the spiritual journey ahead. So it will help you, it will purify your mind. And the next one is it will naturally generate positive vibrations. The chanting itself in Sanskrit has beautiful effect on your body and the mind, because that is why it is, meaning as I said, that it is used, the language, the rhythm is considered, and also the meter is considered. And when you chant it properly, if you want, just listen to that Shantakaram itself. If you close your eyes and just listen to that Shantakaram, that itself can create the positive vibrations. And then finally, it will harmonize the heart and the mind, because it creates that bond with the divine, and it will help you to embark that certain, meaning spiritual journey. These are some of the significance of the Dhyana Shloka. So now let's quickly talk. So we talked about what is Dhyanam, what is Shloka, and we saw the meaning of the combined meaning of Dhyana Shloka. Then we saw the origins of the Shlokas from Valmiki, and then we talked about the significance of the Dhyana Shloka. So these Dhyana Shlokas are not just exclusive to Gita. Every practice has that. So even as it exists as a simple prayer for all the deities, to Subramanya, Rama, Ayyappa, Krishna, Devi, Sindura, Runa Vigraham, Tranayanam. Every major stotra has Dhyana Shloka. So we talked about that, and also we talked about the significance of Dhyana Shloka. So now let's keep our attention or go to the Gita Dhyanam in particular. So the Dhyanam, there are 9 verses popularly known as Gita Dhyana. And these are not part of the original Bhagavad Gita or Mahabharata. This was composed by sometimes later by some scholars or some masters. And unfortunately, we don't have any clear idea about who is the author. Different masters say that it is different people. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan and Nataraja Gurus say that it is from the Vaishnaviya Tantrasara. This prayer came out. Swami Chinmayananda and Swami Dayananda, Swami Paramarthananda, all those masters tells that it is composed by Swami Madhusudana Saraswati, another great master of Advaita Vedanta. Swami Ranganathananda mentioned that it is composed by Sridhara Swami, but the most prominent opinion is that this is composed by Madhusudana Saraswati. I just wanted to give you the different pictures. So that is what the attributions. But it doesn't matter who composed it. It doesn't matter who discovered the computer. The important factor is that I can use my computer on my day-to-day work. Just like that, it doesn't matter whether it is Sridhara Swami or Vaishnaviya Tantrasara or Madhusudana Saraswati, as long as we take it and use it in our life. Then foundation, this Dhyana Shloka, Gita's Dhyana Shloka, these 9 verses, usually it is chanted before the study of the Bhagavad Gita. As like any Dhyana Shloka, it sensitizes your mind and clarifies the intellect for the study of the Bhagavad Gita. And despite of the difference in opinion on the origins, Gita Dhyanam is widely popular. Most of the people, especially in the Advaita Vedanta tradition, they chant this Gita Dhyanam always like prior to the study of the Gita or chanting of the Gita. And this Gita Dhyanam is often quoted by different masters. To example, Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda said, like, when during his Chicago addresses, when people asked how can he do that, he said, "Mukam karoti vachalam pankam lankhe degiri," quoting from the Gita Dhyana. His grace, the divine grace, is going to convert a mute into eloquent. That is what happened. He was just telling that I am just an instrument in the hand of that divine. Mahatma Gandhiji also used to quote this Gita Dhyanam a lot, which we will talk a little bit later, but this is often quoted by a lot of great masters. So, what exactly covered in the Gita Dhyana? First is it offers homage and salutations to a lot of people. First thing is that it acknowledges Sage Vyasa, who is the compiler of the life-transforming teaching of the Mahabharata. And we recognize him or acknowledge him for creating a vital bridge between the humanity and the divine knowledge. Without Vyasa's help, it would not have happened. Then the universal teacher, Vishwa Guru, Jagat Guru, Krishna, it identifies Krishna, offers salutations to Bhagavan Krishna, and emphasizes his role in impacting this teaching and importance of high-skilled teachers' requirement. And also it defines or pays homages to Upanishads and pays homages to Bhagavad Gita and clearly talks about the fact that Bhagavad Gita is part of the Upanishads. So homage and salutations is one thing. And then the second point in the Gita Dhyana is inspiring devotion and transcendence. Right? So it encourages faith and effort. It talks about the divine grace and also actually talks about the spiritual reality and the importance of humility and devotion in worldly transactions. It talks, beautiful verses are there. Then it summarizes the Mahabharata saga, the importance of Mahabharata. In some brilliant verses it summarizes. And then obviously it talks about the absolute truth, the truth beyond any names and forms. That is the final verse of the Gita Dhyana. So this is where we are. And I request Avanti to add any comments on the topics we covered so far, which is the introduction to Gita Dhyana.
Namaskar. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So beautifully covered all of the points. But what I'd like to stress on is the importance of an invocation. I think that is the most important thing when we come to any practice, as was already mentioned, whether it's a ritual in front of the altar, whether it is, even studies, when we come to study our scriptures in the mornings or whenever you have put time aside, just sitting down quietly. If any of you are into yoga practices as well, you'll notice most yoga teachers will begin their practice with a little bit of breathing and, chanting of the Om. Now, why is this necessary? Last week, I had touched upon the Tikshna Buddhi and the Sukshma Buddhi, which is the gross intellect and the subtle intellect. Now, in the world, whatever we need to do, we need the gross intellect. And we may be doctors, we may be lawyers and all of that. And what plays a role in that achievement or in that field for us is our gross intellect. But we cannot attain the higher without the awakening of the subtle intellect. It's already there in all of us, the Sukshma Buddhi, but it's not very active all the time, just because how worldly we are and we are always focused on gaining in the world. So it's kind of a bit asleep. So when we get into any invocation or any opening prayers, it is like you're driving at a particular speed and then you need to shift gears into another speed. So you actually physically, now it's all done automatic, but days gone by, if anybody is my age or older, we actually had the stick shift where we had to shift gears. So what any invocation or this quiet time before any spiritual practice does for us is it helps us shift gear. So it is my ardent request to all of you that even when you're just about to read the Bhagavad Gita, if you are reading it, just take a little bit of time and just keep quiet. Allow your mind to draw itself back from what you've been doing, which is very busy, very worldly, and come to the quietude that is required to understand the shlokas. Even scientifically, if you look at it, if you look at the left brain and the right brain, the left brain predominantly deals with logic and with numbers and, with more gross things, whereas the right brain is what is required for creativity and especially for intuition. So if you look at, even if you just notice within yourself that when you even listen to any chant or when you chant a particular chant, there is a natural shift in your thinking. There's a natural ability to grasp what you're about to study. And if you don't do that, it's not going to be possible. I've lived abroad most of my life, 5 years I've been out of India, and I've taught Bal Vihar classes all over the world. So it was very endearing for me to hear from American kids in an American school in Singapore that now whenever they have an exam, they sit for a few minutes. These are the Bal Vihar kids that come to us. They sit for a few minutes and they chant Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini, just to, plead to Saraswati to give them the ability to answer these questions and pass this exam. So the sooner you take up to this practice, the better it is. That's all I wanted to say, that make sure that you do take some time, even before just reading the Bhagavad Gita, your understanding will be much different. We are going to study the Dhyana Shlokas now. It might be too much to learn the entire Gita Dhyanam, but each verse by itself is a prayer in itself. So if you can pick up any one verse and learn it up by heart, understand the meaning, which you will be with us, understand the meaning, and any one verse that you can chant by heart, please say it every time you are about to read or study the Bhagavad Gita. It will make a huge difference in your understanding and in your study. Thank you.
Thank you, Avanti. So with that, let's get started with the first shloka. So the first shloka is a salutations to Mother Gita. Like whoever is the author, they are visualizing the Bhagavad Gita as like a mother. So let's listen to the chanting and then let's get into the meaning.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atha Gita Dhyana Shlokas. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gradhitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्.
Just listening to this itself is a meditative experience. So let's see the quick literal meaning, and then let's take each of these words and try to understand the detailed meaning, and then we will recap with the combined meaning. So it starts with a prayer, Om, and then it tells, O Mother Bhagavad Gita, you are imparted by the divine Lord Narayana himself to enlighten Arjuna, faithfully compiled by the ancient sage Vyasa. You find your esteemed presence in the heart of the great Mahabharata. Spread across 18 chapters, you shower the nectar of Advaita, standing as a beacon against life's adversities. Repeatedly, I turn to you, the very essence that dispels the worldly dilemmas. So let's now go to each of the words and try to understand the meaning. So the first one is, the invocations start with Om. So in Sanatana Dharma, or in our culture, any invocation start with Om. Om is the mantra for auspiciousness. Why? Because it represents the Ishvara, or the universal intelligence. See, in what exactly is Om? We need to understand one more time. It's a sound syllable representing Ishvara, or the universal intelligence. See, right now, we don't know who is Ishvara. Obviously, we know that there is an Ishvara, or the universal intelligence, but we don't know him. We are studying Gita with the hope that we get that complete understanding. Or any spiritual practice we undertake is for getting connected with that Ishvara. But right now we don't know the full meaning of Ishvara, the full scope of Ishvara, the depth of Ishvara, the breadth of Ishvara. So when you don't know something and you are trying to solve in math, elementary math, what we do, we take a variable called x. Let's say that if a teacher brought a set of candies to the class, and the teacher gave one candy to each kid, and finally 10 more candies left. The question is, how many candies the teacher brought? How do you solve? You say that let x be the total number of candies brought, and then the whole mathematical process is solving the value for that x. And once you solve the x, the problem is solved. So in spiritual world, if you take the same example, Om is used to represent Ishvara. And so finding the meaning of the Om, understanding the depth and breadth of the Om is the entire spiritual practice. And then the question is, why I could have taken another word, right? A or U or X or Y or alpha or beta or gamma to represent Ishvara. Yeah, that is fine. But this particular word is selected with a specific purpose. One is then the meaning of the Om is Avat. One meaning of the Om is Avat, that which protects me, that which sustains me is Avati Rakshati, and that sound is known as Om. That is the best name you can give to Ishvara. Another way of interpretation is what? Like, there are hundreds of ways you can interpret this Om, but each and every interpretation, when you go through that, it clearly tells me that this is the best name that can be taken for Ishvara. So another way of looking at Om is, if you open your mouth and make a noise, it is A. And if you close your mouth and make a sound, it is And in between, if you try to make a sound, it is Oo. So if you add this A plus Oo plus every sound you produce, it is either through full mouth or closed mouth or half mouth. So that symbolically represents the entire sound meaning the humanity or a person can make. So it covers the entire scope of the universe. And that is why it is Om. Another way of looking at it is, you can say that one is your waking state of experience, the other one is dream, and the other one is deep. And between the silence, it is that consciousness. So there are so much of symbolism, so much of meaning loaded on the sounds level. And that is why it is chosen as the beginning of any practice. And typically there are two chants, either Om or Atha, that is denote the auspicious beginning also. Like when you in our culture, we always think about the auspicious beginning. So chanting of Om or the word Atha is considered as an offering of the prayer and a auspicious start. So that is why the Gita Dhyanam started with Om. So now the second point is, the Bhagavad Gita is presented as a compassionate mother. Amba, that is the word used. Amba tvam anusandadami Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is painted as a compassionate mother. So when you think about the mother, the biological mother gives you the physical birth, whereas Gita serves as a spiritual mother. It helps you, it will give you the nourishment, guidance, and protection for all the seekers who approaches the Gita. So that is why, because it is so compassionate, and I salute repeatedly to that mother for my spiritual growth. And another point is that the physical birth, we already talked about that. Gita gives spiritual birth to each person. Whenever we are born, we are not spiritually connected or spiritually elevated, but the Bhagavad Gita can help you to, it give you a spiritual birth, and it can give you a spiritual connection, and it connects the seekers with the Supreme throughout the life journey. And also it gives, just like a mother will give solace and support to any child, the Bhagavad Gita gives you support when there are challenges or hardships in your life. The Gita can give you spiritual comfort, which is much more than any other comfort. It gives solace and wisdom during life's challenges, and it creates a deep connection. And why this simile used is, it shows the deep connection between the seekers and the Bhagavad Gita. And you can see that whoever came across Gita, even ordinary people like us, we found a deep connection with this scripture. And that is why we are taking all this time and doing this. And this is ordinary people like this, but extraordinary people. Anybody who came in contact with Gita, if the Gita has gone through that person for some time, definitely you can see that it creates a beautiful bonding between Gita and that seeker. I just wanted to call out Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi used to say that Gita is her spiritual mother. And he lost his, actually the biological mother at a young age. And Gandhiji always revered Gita as his eternal mother. And you can see this in Mahatma Gandhiji's writing throughout. He found the Gita's support is more comforting than anything in worldly. This is, he has written in many places. In Young India, he has written in his own autobiography, Experiment with Truth. All these books, you can see that. And it provides us a lot of comforts to Mahatma Gandhi during the darkest hours or the difficult hours. And there is no other scripture influenced Mahatma Gandhi just like Bhagavad Gita. I put a quote, exact quote from Mahatma Gandhi. He says, when doubts haunt me, when disappointments stare me in the face, and when I see not one ray of light in the horizon, I run into Bhagavad Gita and I find a verse that comforts me. And I immediately begin to smile in the midst of overwhelming sorrow. This is the exact word he has used. And whoever came to Gita, they used to create a deep bonding, just like a child's bonding with the biological mother. A seeker bonds with Gita, the spiritual mother of the seeker. That is why that it's Very apt usage, especially considering Gita as a mother. So to that mother, I salute again and again. So that is what it means. Anusandadami means anu if you add that prefix to any words. And if you add the prefix, it means again and again. Anu means that follows, right? So it's say like Anu Gita is the Gita that followed Bhagavad Gita. Anuja is the one who followed your birth. Like that, when you say Anusantadami, that means you are prostrating to Gita. That means it's not physical prostrate. You constantly keep the Gita as the most revered book in your life. That's all. So I salute Gita, O Mother Gita, because this is what it said. And then the Gita, the Dhyana Shloka tells, it talks about the Trinity, the student, teacher, and the compiler. So it tells Parthaya Pradibodhidam. So the student is highlighted as Partha. Partha means the son of Pritha. Pritha is a name used for Kunti, because and the son of Pritha is known as Partha. So Partha is referred as Arjuna. If you take a larger meaning or a deeper or a wider meaning, Prithvi means earth. So Partha means anybody is the son of earth. So any human being can be also considered as a student of the Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita, if you take the legend, it is the Arjuna is the student. In fact, his dilemma serves as the prototype for the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. So the student is identified. That is the first line of the Gita Dhyana. The next one is it talks about the teacher. So who taught the Gita? The Gita is taught by Bhagavan Narayana. Bhagavan Krishna. Bhagavan Krishna is the teacher of the Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavan Krishna is addressed by the name Narayana. Nar meaning Narayana. So it is the ultimate destination of all the human being. That is what is Narayana means. The ultimate destination of the human being. That means the teacher is well qualified because he is the universal intelligence of the universe. He is the Ishvara of the universe. So the Ishvara of the universe taught this Bhagavad Gita to a very important student, an ideal student, Arjuna, who is a prototype of the entire humanity. So student is identified, the teacher is identified. Now who is the compiler? Because Krishna taught to Arjuna, but somebody faithfully compiled it and put it in the form of the book or the verses. So Vyasa. So that is why Parthaya Pradibodhidam Bhagavatam Narayanena, by the Swayam Narayana himself, the Bhagavan Narayana himself taught the Bhagavad Gita for educating Partha or Arjuna. So the second line says Vyasa. It is compiled by the Mathye Mahabharatam. It is compiled by the ancient sage Purana Muni. Purana here means ancient. Muni means sage. So Purana Muni, the ancient sage Vyasa, compiled these teachings of Krishna to Arjuna and placed in the midst of Mahabharata. So that is why. So 18 chapters, it is spreading over 18 chapters and it is placed in the grand epic of Mahabharata. So this, the Dhyana Shloka 1 acknowledges the student, teacher and the compiler. The student is Arjuna. The teacher is Bhagavan Krishna, known as Narayana. Narayana means the ultimate destination of all the human being or the universal intelligence. And it is compiled by Vyasa and placed at the center of the Mahabharata. And then what is the essence of Bhagavad Gita? Advaita Vedanta. So that it tells Advaita Amrita Varshini. It showers the nectar of Advaita. Advaita means the vision of non-dual existence. Advaita tells that the essence of you and the essence of the Ishvara is one and the same. The Advaita is a vision that emphasizes the unity between or the interconnectivity of all beings and with the Ishvara. That is what you know as Tattvamasi. And what is the transformative power of the Advaita? Advaita, it is called as nectar of Advaita. In the Puranas and all, you hear about the nectar, Amrita. The Amrit power, the power of Amrit is it gives you the immortality. Just like Amritam gives you immortality, just like that the Advaita gives you spiritual immortality. Spiritual immortality means it will reveal your own true nature And once your own true nature is revealed, there is absolutely no death for that your own self. Obviously, your body is not yourself, but you are the consciousness in you, and there is no death and birth for that. And that is how it is known as Advaita Amrita Varshini. It gives you the spiritual immortality. And then it talks about the structure of the Gita. Ashtadashadhyayini. It tells Bhagavad Gita what is the structure of the Bhagavad Gita. It has 700 and verse, 18 chapters. So 700 and shloka properly placed in the Bhagavad Gita in 18 chapters, and it helps me for the spiritual growth and self-realization. And that's it. That is the essence of the first shloka. So the quote here is, as a mother's touch softens the life blows, so the Bhagavad Gita shelters us from the beneath of the grace of the confronting warmth of its infinite wisdom. This is a quote about the first shloka. So what we saw in the first shloka is Parthaya pradibodidam bhagavatam narayanena swayam vyasena grathitam purana muninam madhye mahabharatam advaitamrita varshinim bhagavatim ashtadashatyayinim ambatvam anusandadami bhagavad gite bhavadvishni. Auspicious beginning with the name Om, and then you salute the Bhagavad Gita as a divine mother, and I constantly salute the Bhagavad Gita. Ambatvam anusandadami Bhagavad Gita, which is the spiritual mother. And why? Bhavadveshini, it dispel student, teacher, and the compiler. Bhagavatam Narayanena Swayam. Lord Krishna or the Narayana is the teacher. Vyasena Gradhidam Purana Muninam, compiled by the ancient sage Vyasa and placed in the Mahabharata. Advaitamrita Varshini, it bestows the wisdom of Advaita. Ashtadeshathyayini, it has 18 chapters and 701 verse. Sorry, it is 701 because there are some people say 700. The difference is 13 chapter. The first shloka, if you count, it is 701. So to that Gita, I constantly salute. That's what the Dhyana Shloka. So let's listen to Avanti, her thoughts, and then we will conclude today's session with the closing prayers. And then we will restart with Shloka 2 next week.
Namaskar. So just two things I'll focus upon. One is the Om. In fact, while Rajesh ji was explaining the Om, I went back to our canvas when we were just writing this, when we were writing all of this down. And there's so many meanings. There's so many meanings to Om. And we had actually started incorporating a lot of those meanings in the book. And then we took them all out again. So when you read the book, actually, you will not find all the meanings that Om has. Because we said if we put everything in the beginning only, what is there for the rest of the Gita? And as we said, there's 701 verses and 18 chapters, and Om comes about, and especially later on, it comes about quite emphatically. So we'll get into more of the meanings then. But what I wanted to emphasize on is, see, every Sanskrit word, especially when it's in a prayer, it has the value of articulation, which means that it has a very deep meaning. And at the onset, especially if you don't have a good teacher or if you don't have a proper reference, that might seem a bit ambiguous. But what you need to focus upon, especially if you're in the beginning stages of your spiritual sadhana, is the intonational value of the Om or any of the Sanskrit prayers. And that is just the power of how it sounds. It is said that, outside some of these Shankaracharya mats, apparently the way they chant our shlokas in the Shankaracharya mats is the best in the world. Nobody comes close to chanting it that way. And it is said that when cows are passing from there, and if the chanting is going on, they will stop and they will look and they will listen. So it's got that sort of a power. So what I want to say over here is that focus on the Om for now, at least on its intonational power, till you start understanding the full meaning of it. And the beauty of Om, I'm speaking from personal experience, is that the more and more you listen to it, the more and more you chant it, and the more and more you get to the depths of just its sound, somehow the connectedness, the meaning of it starts revealing itself to you. And then when you understand it through the text, it's just magical. So that's one thing. Now we are studying this book, which is the book we've written. So when it comes to mother, I think that's one thing that requires a little bit more of an emphasis, because what we've written here is just beautiful. And while studying any book, every author likes to read from their own books. I'll read one paragraph, especially about the mother that we've written, and it's really remarkable. It says, like a mother who births a child into the world, the Gita births a holistically sound personality out of the seeker. Just as the mother is the physical womb of a human being, the Gita is considered the spiritual womb. A biological umbilical cord keeps the child connected with the mother through gestation. Similarly, the wisdom of the Gita is an invisible spiritual umbilical cord that holds the seeker connected with the Supreme throughout the mortal sojourn. When children face worldly atrocities, they seek comfort in the mother's lap. Similarly, whenever a seeker faces untoward challenges in life, they seek solace in the uplifting wisdom of Mother Gita. I've got goosebumps as I read this and getting a bit teary, because really this is the role of the Bhagavad Gita in every seeker's life who makes the right contact with her. Mahatma Gandhi has already been quoted by Rajesh ji so beautifully, and even a Western author, Arthur Schopenhauer, he was a Western philosopher. These are his words. The Bhagavad Gita has been the solace of my life and will be the solace of my death, not to mention everything in between. And it has been my personal experience as well. I lost my mother when I was 7. And the way the Bhagavad Gita has stepped in the most crucial stages of my life, and most importantly, it taught me how to be a mother. So it is something that you can keep going back, not something, it is somebody that you can keep going back to on any advice, for any advice. And rest assured, if you make the right connection, you're never going to be let down. That's all I'd like to say about everything else that is in the first shloka. I think the mother aspect of it is what stands out the most for me.